This time around, sitting in the studio with me is Rachelle Armstrong. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for coming in to be part of the journey, and we'll learn a little bit about why you're sitting here. Now, you come to us from Nutrisoil,
Yes.
which is a local business which is actually doing something fairly substantial nationally, and maybe you've got some international attention. Anybody who hasn't heard of the product or the business here locally, give us a background of it.
Essentially, we empower farmers to grow life-enriching food. That's our purpose. But two tools that we use is education, but the signature product that we have that we're most known for is our Nutrisoil worm liquid. So we've got great big worm farms, and most people think of the backyard little worm farms, and if you think of that times 1,000, we've got 500 metres of worm beds on the property, and so we purposefully feed worms what we want to get out the other end as a biological fertiliser. So farmers are using this to grow crops. They're using it on pasture, in dairy systems, and horticulture, viticulture, right across the board.
Albury-Wodonga's full of hidden secrets.
Yeah.
And this sounds like another one of those cases that we've sort of discovered through this journey process. How long have you been established, and what was the motivation behind, I guess, farming worms and their juices?
Sometimes I say, we're Albury-Wodonga's best kept secret. And in saying that motivates me to sort of do more in our local area. So we well known in Western Australia, believe it or not. And we are getting international interest. While we're not planning to export to, America, Canada, New Zealand, the places that are interested, it's sometimes our hometown that we sort of want to get word out. That's why we participate in the business awards and things like that. It's a good way to let others know what we're doing. This is very much my father's brainchild, Graham. We all grew up on the farm at Yakandanda. He's a fourth generation farmer, dairy farmer, at the time when he came up with this innovation. He initially used the manure from the dairy operation to feed worms and start, making this worm liquid. But it all started from a chemical accident that he had. So when he was using a really common chemical called dimethylate, which is an insecticide to get rid of certain insects in the pasture, he had an accident and inhaled it. So he became really ill. And the thing about these chemicals is they're often not acute. So he didn't attribute his sort of lethargy, he couldn't get out of bed, and flu-like symptoms straight away to the poison. And it was sort of later on that they found out that would have been the link. Yeah, there was a real wake-up call, and this is in the 80s, a long time ago, to like our so-called healthy farm life not being so healthy, like because of the products that people are using, so the chemicals and even the massive costs of fertilisers that farmers need to use these days just to grow their pasture or crops. So all of these things were the beginnings of my father being the innovative and creative person that he is, so to start experimenting with natural fertilisers like seaweed and the worm liquid. So that's sort of the start of it.
I guess it's a full family affair now, really, isn't it?
Your certainly business. Is.
So you're managing director.
Yeah.
So you would have grown up here, I guess, gone to school here.
Yeah. So Yakandanda is where the family farm was, and there's still some family there now. I went to Yakandanda Primary School, and then I went on to St Paul's College at Walla to boarding school, but I did come back to Wodonga High. Yeah, so.
And so what's your qualification then to work in that business? Obviously it's something your father discovered and you've had to fall in love with as well.
Yeah. So my interest was not to go into farming and agriculture. It was actually health. And so I went on to university in Melbourne and did a Bachelor of Health Sciences. And so I was always interested in the human health component. I suppose a journey of going from, the university studies to going to, I lived and worked overseas in Sri Lanka for 3 years and sort of realised that whilst health was important, there was other aspects, people needed income as well. And all the time my father was starting to develop, the Nutrisoil product. And so from Sri Lanka to Western Australia and lived and worked over there and worked in community development. And eventually, my father was sort of saying it'd be good to have some help with what he was doing. But I started to connect the way food was grown to our health, which sounds obvious. It sounds obvious to me now, but initially it was just, we sort of separate that. Mm-hmm. So we think of human health as, what exercise we do and having fruit and veggies and these things in our diet. But we don't think about how they are grown and, what methods. This all came around and I ended up in agriculture. And so I've got a Bachelor of Science, but we're interested in an area that's more regenerative agriculture. And it's a shift away from the conventional agriculture type of thinking. So if you were to go and study ag science, you'll be trained in conventional agriculture, and that'll include doing all the sums on how many inputs, how many fertilizers, what chemicals are needed when something goes wrong. So having training, university training in this field isn't actually that helpful. So and for me it was having training in another sort of field that helped me understand research methods, science, and how scientific inquiry, which is an important method to understand. But it was actually quite helpful to be outside of the realm. And the other thing is, my father never wanted salespeople in the business, so we've never employed somebody that was a salesperson. So again, we actually want to really make a difference, we need to be outside the box. So when you sort of say, what training have you had for this business, it's like, what training haven't I had, which helps us to think broader.
Well, immediately just having met you today and talking to you about what is clearly your passion, your family's passion. Keyword in there was education. So what are your thoughts on that, and what's the message that through this product that you try to make us think? You mentioned the balanced diet of fruit and veg, and you think of that, but then everyone's familiar with balanced diet, they're familiar with words like organic, but they don't necessarily proactively know what that means unless it's written on a label. Well, I guess what's the message that you usually have as you do meet people and talk about your product? So
now we're really having to find out how farming's done, really find out what is the thinking and the methods that a farmer's using to produce the food that we're eating. And that sounds really hard. We sort of expect that, that's been done for us. And unfortunately, the way, the health outcomes that we're getting these days that are increasingly, getting worse and worse, we're going to have to start doing that work now. For some people, that's going to a farmer's market and meeting farmers. And that's not always easy to get all your produce that way, but it helps to start educating you. With regards to organic, it's, some people are critical that not all organic food is the highest quality, because you can learn that organic food is something that's passed regulations to say that they've removed a certain amount of chemicals and fertilizers, but there's not a guarantee that they've increased the carbon in the soil. So now there's organic regenerative. And I don't mean to confuse things, but that's the sort of understanding people are getting. So this is a new movement, organic regenerative. We can just really start to question more. We shouldn't just believe the marketing, walk into a supermarket and assume everything's good for us. In the future, and they're being developed now, we will have tools that can actually assess the nutrient quality of a vegetable, so that you can actually walk into the supermarket and sort of say, okay, forget the marketing. This actually tells us what the quality of this is. This is going to be good for for enriching my life and not be harmful. Yeah.
And is that technology based? Obviously, what they're doing with that?
Yes.
App driven or something?
Yes. We'll have an app. Yeah. It is available, but it's about really making that a common thing. Yeah.
I know in your business, looking at your website, you're quite technology focused, things like podcasts and all the rest. And how's that been received by the agriculture industry? You instantly think, like your own father, if someone who's a multi-generational farmer, I've done what Dad did, he did what his dad did. How do you find that process?
Yeah, I think everyone's realising that things are changing faster now than ever. So 14 years ago when I started with the business, we were, just realising that farmers were looking at the internet and things probably have, changed really fast. And it was only a few years ago that my sister-in-law, Nikala, suggested the idea of doing the podcast. And I thought, no, people want to see. They want a video. They want to actually see the person. And I was so wrong. The podcasts have been so successful. And the reason is because farmers can listen to podcasts on the tractor. Like, they spend a lot of time in the tractor. They spend a lot of time in the vehicle, driving around on these large properties. And so there's been a massive take-up of the podcast, and people don't need to see the person. And it's quite funny. So, if it's fair to say, grown like wildfire. They're appreciated internationally as well. Yeah.
Great. How do you think other people would describe you?
Passionate. Yeah. I'm fairly, driven, I suppose. I checked that with the staff and I said, is that okay? They said, yeah, that's you. Yeah.
Well, it certainly seems that way. Definitely passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
Why are you passionate? Like, what sort of keeps you motivated to do that each day? The change that you've spoken about, like trying to have an impact?
I think I was always driven, even back to earliest memories from primary school sort of age, to help people. And whilst, as I said before, I thought that was going to be in health. Yeah, so what keeps me motivated is just wanting to actually help people on a larger scale. So earlier in my life, I might have thought about helping one person at a time in the area of health. I kept gravitating towards population health, public health, and with agriculture, it's just, it's actually planetary health. And planetary health is good, but you can't have, it's no use having improving the environment without helping people. So people are part of it. So it's sort of a bit convoluted, but it's a combination of saving the planet and really getting to understand people and how people can, where the impact needs to be with people.
I'd imagine it's fairly time consuming when you're part of a family business, and how do you separate? How do you get the normal family Christmas barbecue versus getting off topic? To anyone who's ever had to work with a family or partner member knows that you could quite often have that sort of interfere with your personal life. How do you go managing that?
I think that the best thing that we've done is collaborate with outside partners, so that we're always looking at a cause greater than ourselves, and it's also greater than our family as well. And so recognising where outside help can actually support us to separate those. So we have board meetings as directors, which is funny. I'm sitting down with mum and dad, it's that's a board meeting, but really recognising that as apart from, Christmas Day. Yeah. And look, we still have all our family get-togethers, and so it's just making sure that you have both, and it's clearly not meshed into the one.
I suppose you'd all stop each other if anyone brings it up. Let's talk about that when we get back to work. Not today.
Oh, no, you do. Yeah, you do talk about some work things. It's just, it would be impossible to be that black and white. So I'm not going to say we've got it perfect, but it's just realising, you go home, speak to your husband at night, and he's also the logistics manager. We still speak about work, but there's a difference from work being the thing that you have to do compared to what the way we're actually driven by our values and what we're passionate about. So we enjoy talking about, making a difference. So,
when you share the passion.
So it doesn't so much feel like, have you ordered the toilet paper for the office, or like, that's different.
What do you do with any spare time that you have?
Mountain bike riding.
Oh, right.
That's something that I've loved for many years and brought my husband and I together. And now we do with our daughter as well. So there's nothing like, particularly, we love downhill mountain bike riding. Probably don't do as much of the challenging stuff as I used to a few years ago. But we love to get on a hill and get out in nature and challenge ourselves. And it just makes you switch off and be in the moment.
And having grown up around Yak, I'd imagine you know a few good trails.
Do you know what? I had no idea back then for mountain biking. So we rode motorbikes on the farm. You just didn't even you barely had push bikes on the dirt roads and things. But it was actually going away and coming back and catching up with an old high school friend that said, do you know there's amazing mountains around us? So Bright, Falls Creek, Threadbow. Then I really, truly discovered the region. As a kid, I probably stayed more just in the confines of the farm. Yeah.
What's something you can tell me now that not many people know about you? Any fun facts? Or
Yeah, not many people may know that I'm a paraglider as well. So I've got my pilot's license for paragliding. Yeah, that's something that I took on in a difficult time in my life just to really, challenge myself. And you know, again, it's like mountain biking, but sort of even more on steroids because it's life. You know,
life and death. Yes.
Life and death if you don't get the launch and landing right or the conditions right. So. Yeah.
Tell me some more about that. Any near misses or how do you jump off a perfectly good bit of ground for the first time?
Yeah, well, with paragliding, you don't jump off. You actually run. So you run until there's no land underneath you. Yeah, you run down a very, very steep hill until you're above the ground. And it's quite funny. You actually keep running and to make sure. So it's a funny little. It's awesome to see the bird's eye view. And whilst I started with microlight flying earlier on, I was glad to leave the engine behind and actually just be up there with you, with just the glider. And you can just hear the different changes in wind. You can, and you have to really observe nature to see, because wind is invisible. So it's very it's similar to surfing in that you've got to get the right wind conditions, and they do come almost like waves, but you can't see them. So it's a spectacular view of the world.
And you still get a bit of that time for that, or?
Yeah, no, it's something that I had to put on hold because you can't just do that occasionally. It's really dangerous to go once every few months. You sort of have to really keep at it to keep to keep your head around how to assess the conditions and all that sort of thing. So I had to put it on hold because my daughter's activities became more important. But that paraglider sitting in the shed ready for me to get back into it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Being a managing director of a company, you no doubt have some philosophical thoughts perhaps, or particularly the particular business and product and the desire and passion you've already discussed.
Yeah.
What's some great quotes? Have you got any quotes that you sort of apply as filters to life? Or
there's one of my favourite quotes is by Albert Einstein, and it's just that you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that actually created the problem. And that's something that really rings true for us. So we need to, regenerative agriculture is really coming up with innovative solutions just not carrying on the same way that's got us into, a lot of the agricultural disasters, if you like. The drought and things like that is not just the weather. It's actually partly how we've been dehydrating the ground from the way we've been farming. So they've got a lot of creativity there, and it's both challenging and exciting. To think that there's possibilities beyond what you've already considered. Yeah, we like to say you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. What do you consider to be your biggest achievement in life so far? You can take this professionally, personally, whatever you'd like to do, or we can answer it both ways.
Yeah, really taking on business. So this Nutrisol business wasn't something that I had experience in before. I partnered with Mum and Dad to really make it into a bona fide business. So it's not something I even saw it as a strength. So to take it on and learn the necessary legal and structural things to actually build a business and then build a team, the team, having employees can be really scary. How they then rely on you to have a successful business to pay them. So all of those things and really feeling like that, we've been able to achieve that. It feels like, my greatest achievement.
You mentioned employees. Has that ever, at any time, has that ever kept you up at night?
Sure. I think people are our greatest challenge. So it's not so much, making the worm liquid and, and actually producing the product and selling it. It's actually how to get a vibrant team that are all firing. And, you sort of can't expect, in some ways, I've always felt like you can't expect other people to have the same passion that you do. But I've actually learnt that if you really get to understand each other's values, you can actually get them firing in a way that we're all, like a weapon of mass destruction for good, if you like. So we're all, making sure that our jobs are like, or what we're coming to work to do is exactly what we, are best at. So that's been the challenge. The keeping you up at night is sort of going, okay, this person, they're just not really happy. How, and you think, okay, what's not working for them, or what's changed? And yeah, you do spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Do you find vision, goals, all those sorts of things as the driver to that success, though? Trying to take, I guess, that stress away and make sure everyone, as you said, if it's not their passion as much as yours, but keeps them on track to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually spent a lot of time, we've invested a lot in this area. So from a few years ago, we started working with business growth strategies, Rod Fraser and Alan Martin. And so it all started with doing what they call a talent dynamics process with each individual in the business. So we all got to learn some. More common one is Myers-Briggs. People have heard of that type of thing. So we this is just a slightly different one called talent dynamics. So we all learnt what really helps us fire, if you like. Then when we did a values process, so we learnt what our individual values were. Then we looked at our purpose. And the purpose was something that, as you can see, we've always been really passionate, but it was something that we articulated. So we hadn't actually got the words out, and that's why, we're very clear about what we do, so that we empower farmers to grow life-enriching food, and that's everything that we do then needs to always be fitting into that, under that purpose. And then, we created values for the business. So, and then we match, how do our values match the values of the business? So, it's made a big difference for us as a business to sort of recognise whose values are where. Some might be, it's not like everything has to be a business value, but mine tend to be. But but so it could be family, it could be, just nature. There's all these different things that, and we'll go through that process again because we've got 3 new members since we did it a year or 2 ago, and that'll help, pick the team up another level. Yes.
Do you have any regrets in life so far?
I couldn't say that I do. No, proud of where we're at. Yeah, so.
In terms of opportunity, do you buck the norm, and if something's in front of you, do you stick to what you're comfortable with, or do you look at other and explore? It sounds as if you're into hang gliding and, and mountain biking.
Yeah. Very excited about bucking the norm, as you put it. So it's really important, just going back to that quote saying that you have to think outside the box. You have to, try and come up with creative solutions. And the challenge is not accepting every single opportunity that's in front of you and being able to guide the course to say, right, it's worth investing in this area. And I set up a different organisation from Nutrisoil at one stage just to really develop the education side of things. So it's called Soil Restoration Farming. And it felt like a bit weird and a bit risky, and there was no income, but we managed to run about 10 education programs in Western Australia. So it was a risk, and it just felt like that the West Australian farmers really needed, and they were calling out, they were saying, we need to get some of these great scientists, independent scientists, to come and speak over here. So we created that And then we collaborated with a number of businesses like Nutrisoil who all sponsored the events. And so, yeah, it's really paid off in the way that there's been a huge culture change and a huge lift in the farmers following this regenerative practices in Western Australia. So, yeah, that's I don't mind to try things that are different, but it's always scary. Yeah.
I was going to say the risk.
Yeah.
The risk is the key word that you said in there, isn't it? If you don't take a risk, you might not necessarily achieve anything. Is that what you'd agree with? Or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
What's the best thing that's ever happened to you in life, do you think?
Oh, just has to be, creating a family, so, so we've got a very small family, my husband and my daughter, and, creating life and just being able to share the world with our little family unit. So we're very close. It's definitely the best thing.
You sort of mentioned at the start of the interview, obviously you studied in health and was interested in health. You've ended up in agriculture. As a kid, what did you want to be? Like, a lot of people have these grand ambitions to be astronauts or different things like that. What were you thinking as a kid?
I always felt compelled to help people in some way. I think I felt like I had a pretty privileged upbringing, even though it would have been, basic on the farm. Yeah, and so the funny thing is, at that time we always felt it was really healthy, and it was later on that I sort of realised that farms aren't the healthiest place, unfortunately. I thought I might have been a health practitioner, as got closer to uni, and I just always gravitated to these larger scale scenarios. So whilst I went and did health science, that university degree didn't lead to any particular health practitioner role, and that was a number of the people in the course were always sort of saying, "Oh, what job am I going to have?" And I thought, "Oh, this is interesting." I just keep, looking at larger scale, like population health, public health. Yeah, so I really feel that the connection, it came full circle. That the way we grow our food does affect our health, and so I really felt I was in the right place when we started, building Nutrisoil as a business.
It's sort of come around to where you were sort of thinking anyway, but you just didn't probably know what that mechanic was.
Yeah, and in the middle, so between health and getting to Nutrisoil was I spent several years in a small town called Nannup in Western Australia on community development. So for the local council, I was the Youth and Community Development Officer, and I love, again, it's thinking of whole communities. How do you improve the social and and environmental outcomes for whole communities? So I really bought that. That's quite unique, I think, in that we run a business that sells a product, but we're very interested in building the regenerative agriculture community, and so all of these things link. Yeah.
Hindsight's always 20/20. Is there any advice you'd give a younger you? Anything you've learned? You thought, my daughter, I'll make sure she doesn't do that, or.
Oh, I think everything you do for a reason. It's all about your own journey. But I think that just realising that you are capable of so much, and it's actually, it's not all the education, like, the university education and that's going to make you a better person. It's really getting to know yourself and your own values and when you get to know yourself first and then realise, get to understand other people more, you get sort of less depressed or anxious or concerned about what all of these things that sort of tend to be big problems for young people. We didn't used to use those words as we were growing up, but you start to understand, oh, that person acted that way and it wasn't about me. This is, when you say my daughter, but it's useful right through life, so you sort of realise that you're capable of so much and you're the one that needs to make it happen. No one else can do it for you.
Let's have a little bit of fun. A movie about your life. Who would play you? Well, the first person that comes to mind is Julia Roberts. I mean, she's gorgeous, but it's the sort of films that she's been in that she's very passionate. So I remember Erin Brockovich, she transcends the stereotypes of women. So even in Pretty Woman, so she's a strong woman, really compelled to do good in the roles that she's played. So that's my thought. If you could have a couple of people at the dinner table with you and your family, whether they're still with us or whether they've passed away, who would you like to surround yourself with?
Oh, I mean, it's just straight away. It's like the Dalai Lama. I would definitely like to sit down with a Dalai Lama. But the other person is my grandmother. I was thinking like, she's passed away now, but I'd like, she's just like my number one fan.
And you'd probably get some real good wisdom out of those two. So
Yeah. No, my grandmother would be like, practical. And yes, then the Dalai Lama, philosophical. He's just awesome.
If you could be anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you be? Don't worry about money. Where would you be? Who have you got there with you?
I'd be in Sri Lanka with my family. Yeah, with Justin and Matilda. Yeah.
Good one.
I'd love to be.
Well, Rachelle Armstrong, maybe give it a plug. Mm-hmm. Nutrisol, just for agriculture? Can you use it in your garden at home? Or what's it?
Yeah, it's useful. So it's a worm liquid that could be used for anything that grows. So that's from the veggie patch at home to the broadacre crop. So because it's not a really harsh fertiliser that forces growth, it's actually got a full range of nutrient. It's got the enzymes and hormones and all sorts of things that we're still learning. It's such a complex product that, it basically gives the chemical signals for growth and naturally. So, for anything that you want to grow, yes, Nutrisol is definitely going to benefit it. Yeah.
Excellent, and thank you so much for being part of the journey. I'm sure, like many of I like to call them victims. They always go, "What
feels like that at
Why
times?
is my story interesting? What are you going to take from me?" But I'm sure everybody agrees that today we've learnt quite a bit about
good.
things that we can be mindful of. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.